All right, so yesterday we talked about the three estates pre-revolution in France. Okay, and a little bit of about these estates. So with France, before we get started, what type of government do they have? What type of government at this time here? Go ahead, Paul. An absolute monarchy. Yep, good job. Good job. So England, what type of government do they have? What type of government do they have? Wyatt, go ahead. Yep, constitutional monarchy. Yep, good job. So the monarch, in all reality, doesn't have too much power. If anything, it all resides, it all is held with the parliamentary system, these representative officials. So we also talked about the United States here, okay, the American Revolution. So this government, okay, a lot of the insights, a lot of the really the principles of the Constitution and the U.S. government's based off of who? Who did we talk about last chapter? Why? Enlightenment thinkers. Yep, good job. Good job. So you can see how things are changing, right? You can see how things are really being more representative of the people. France, they're still holding on to this ancient form of government. So there you go. I'll give you that as you work on the bell ringer. Bless you. All right, so yesterday we talked about these estates of the pre-revolution France, okay? And we talked about events yesterday that led to this revolution where people were trying to inspire a new form of government. Okay, like we already mentioned, okay, France has a what type of government? What type of government they have? What? An absolute monarchy. You have a good job. And we all know with Louis the 14th and with Louis the 16th, they state that they are divine right rulers, that they're chosen by God. Okay, so here they are holding on to a really old system, an ancient system, really ever since we started this class with the Middle Ages. Okay, England has gone through a revolution, which we mentioned already, and they have a constitutional monarchy. We just talked about the American Revolution a little bit, but in any case, they're using these Enlightenment views to try to create a government that's representative of the people. Right, France sees this, right? This is also an influence too the people and try to fight for a government that's representative of their values, of their liberties, of their freedoms. Okay, also, one thing to note is that France is going through a lot of hardships, right? Right. So they had to try to pay for the cost of the French and Indian War, American Revolution. It cost a lot of money just to be a thorn in the side to who? So who were they fighting in the French and Indian War? Who were they helping colonists fight in the American Revolution? Right. Connor, the British. Yeah, good job, Great Britain. Good, good. So here they are. The way to try to pay for the cost of the war, they got to do what? Raise all taxes. Yep, good job. And at the same time, there's a lot of issues when it came to agricultural growth. Right? We talked about that mini ice age last chapter. We talked about how there's a very low supply with food and crops. So what happens with a low supply of food? What happens to the price? It jumps, right? It goes sky high. And down here, the French people are having a tough time just to put food on the table. So you see all this Enlightenment views being created in the United States with their form of government, Constitution, Declaration of Independence. And then you see England, which is your rival, have a constitutional monarchy. In France, not so much. High taxes, high prices of goods, inflation. Okay, and they're still living under an absolute monarchy. All right, so the first estate. Who makes up the first estate in France? Connor.
King's family and whatnot, and the higher ups in the church.
Yeah, good job. So they call it the old order, right? So this is the first estate, makes up about 1% of the population. So this is the monarch, his family, and then you have the religious clergy, right? The religious hierarchy. Okay, we talk quite a bit about these priests, bishops, right? We talk about pope, cardinals, you name them. They're all still focused under this system. Absolute monarchy in France. So yeah, that makes up about 1% of the population. Okay, do they pay taxes? No, they're exempt from it, right? They're above all the others, right? They don't have to pay for the burdens, the issues, the problems that France is facing after the American Revolution, War. All right, good, good. So they own about 10% of the land. And so 1% of the population owning about 10% of the land, that's a lot, right? All right, what about the second estate? Who makes up the second estate? Matt, go ahead. Thank you. Yeah, the nobility, right? So we talked about the nobility already. So these are your business owners. These are these people that are really close to the king, right? And these are the people that are educated. They have the ability to maybe form the masses, bring them together, and maybe inspire to fund an army to rival the monarchs. Right? So the king wants to try to keep the second estate on his side. So this makes up about 2% of the population. So how does a king keep the nobility on his side? What do you do? What do you do? Right, Parker? Yeah, good job. So hey, they're the ones too, but not having to pay taxes. Right? So the second estate, the first estate, they kind of go hand in hand. Right? They are a very small portion of the population. But in any case, they're the ones that are exempt from taxes. They're the ones that don't have to pay these heavy burdens. They face and live a very luxurious life. We talked about Louis the 14th already with the Palace of Versailles. Louis the 16th lives in the Palace of Versailles. Right? They have these fancy parties. Right? They're dressing the most fanciest clothing. And they're eating the finest food while everybody else is starving. Yeah, with utensils. Yeah, not like Russians. All right, good. And then you have the third estate, right? All right, so who makes up the third estate? Who makes up the third? Austin.
The other 95%.
Yeah, good job. So, yeah, over 90% of the population focuses with the third estate. Okay. And these people are who? What are these people of the third estate? Chris, go ahead. Yeah, you're common folk, right? So these are your middle class workers. Yeah, this is the lower class even. And these are the bourgeois, which we'll talk a little bit more about today. Okay, which they own some businesses, but at the same time, they're the ones that are really hit hard with taxes because they can somewhat afford to pay these taxes. All right, so they are the backbone of France. They're the ones that are really helping out when it comes to providing materials, resources to France. They growing crops and providing food for the country. Even though, like I mentioned, supply was pretty low since, well, there's a lot of issues with agriculture at that time. So the third estate, they're getting pounded, right? They're getting pounded with taxes. And they see this as not fair, right? So if anything, you can see how this is going to go. The first and second estate, they're going to really come together to keep the third estate really at bay. And that political cartoon I showed you yesterday with the presentation, that really symbolizes what was really going on during this time in France before the revolution. Yeah, that big boulder with the first and second estate standing on top of the third estate. Okay, that's literally how it was, as these people really had a tough time just putting food on the table. All right, so vocab terms. I'll try to zoom in as best I can. This is all we're going to get to today. All right, so we got the National Assembly storming the Bastille, Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizens, and the Constitution of 1791. We'll talk more about the Reign of Terror more tomorrow. But this is the build up to it. This is where the third estate is forming their own types of social protest and political action. All right, so we good? Okay. All right. So National Assembly, what do we have? What do we got? Or do we need another minute? All right, one more minute. One more minute. Yeah. All right, so we good now? Oh, all right, National Assembly, what do we have? What do we have for the National Assembly? What do we got? What do we got? Matt, go ahead. Thank you.
Lower house and by here.
Okay, all right, good, good. So with the National Assembly, this was called upon by the third estate, right? And well, even the king, and they all agreed that they had to come together to try to solve these disputes. And the idea was that the third estate, they were trying to get a little bit more when it came to representation. So what do you think they were trying to fight for? What type of government do you think? The third estate. What do you think they wanted? Paul? Yeah, good job, right? So they wanted a constitutional monarchy. They thought that, you know what, we should have these rights and privileges just like many people in England and in the United States, right? We want to have a say in government. We want to have representatives that really would fight for our interests and our opinions. Right? We just can't continue under this old way of government of the absolute monarch. And they just kind of got got it to its wits' end, I guess you'd say. I was going to say something else, but probably shouldn't. All right, so the National Assembly, okay, they're calling for this constitutional monarchy, and Louis the 16th, Louis the 16th thought, well, we want to try to make sure that we have some sort of voting system, and this voting system wasn't called upon for over 175 years, so about 200 years almost, right? This system hasn't been called into play, and with this system, it means that the third and well, really the first, second, and third estate, they would each get one vote. So, how do you think this is going to play out? So the first estate right around has 300 members that are going to come together. Second estate right around 300 members, and then the third estate has 600 members that are going to discuss about these certain topics. But yeah, you got it right. So with the first estate, second, and third estate, they all get one vote per estate. So the first and second estate, we all know that they're going to come together. They're going to try to seek this resolution by outvoting the third estate, even though the third estate has way more members. They have way more of a population. But Louis the 16th realizes that this is a way to try to hold on to power. So he talks with the second estate and says, hey, we'll just continue as status quo. This will be great. We'll just outvote them, no problem. And that's what they did. Right? That's what they did. So this push for the third estate to do something different. Like, you know what, if they're not going to hear our views, our values, then we're going to try to form a new government. Okay? And this is where this National Assembly comes around. Louis the 14th wanted to try to stop this National Assembly from forming. Okay? He thought that this was tyrannical, more of a revolution than anything. He thought this was rioters, people that were trying to challenge the authority of the absolute leader. Okay, but who makes up the army? Who makes up the army? Go ahead, Chris. The commoners, right? Yeah, so here they are, right? You think they're going to fight for the monarch? No, right? They're not. So this is only going to lead to more tensions between France, the people of France, and the monarch, the first and second state. So as you can see with the first and second state, they have equal votes, right? When they come together, they really trump the third state. All right, storming of the Bastille. What do you have? Go ahead, Nick. Speak up.
Has become a city.
Okay. All right. So when was the date? We'll put a date to it. Go ahead, Wyatt. Yep, good job. So July 14th, 1789, right? So the storming of the Bastille, it was a prison in Paris. And the people, to try to express their values, their interests, to try to change this government, the Bastille was looked upon as this beacon of the absolute monarch, right? So they go to the Bastille and tear it down, right? In other cases, like a jail, an armory, so to speak. And as they're taking down this Bastille, literally brick by brick, to let some of the inmates out, which there are only about 7 inmates in any case, they tear down the Bastille. And this is showing that the people are rising up against the absolute monarch. Okay, this is a sign of freedom, a sign of the people voicing their opinions. Okay, so they tear down the Bastille, and this is like France's July 4th. Okay, does that make sense? You can put that in parentheses. There you go. It's their Independence Day. All right, so Declaration of Rights of Man.
It's the 14th, not the 4th. So how could it be there July?
It's like theirs, like for us. Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizens. Who got? Connor, thank you.
Human civil rights document.
Yeah, good job, right? So the Declaration of Independence, written by who? Who wrote the Declaration of Independence? Someone in here. Ozzy? Thomas Jefferson, yeah, good job. So this was a huge important piece of paper, right? So the United States expressing their independence from Great Britain. France doing the same thing. This is their Declaration of Independence. This is their document that's stating that these people are independent from the absolute monarch, forming their own separate form of government. Okay, so this is stating rights, privileges, right, that are given to the people that the government can't take away. Okay? So this is again an inspiration from what we talked about, the Declaration of Independence and the Enlightenment thinkers. Right, all these Enlightenment thinkers' views are expressed in this document. All right, Constitution of 1791. Last thing here. Come on, get through it. Chris, go ahead.
Basically change France to
Yep, good job. Good job. So this is not going to be the only constitution that's written for France. There's actually going to be 3 of them. But in any case, this is the one that broke away from the absolute monarchy. They're trying to fight for a constitutional monarchy, one that's representative of the people, that's giving the people rights over the absolute monarch. All right, good. So those are the terms that we're going to be referencing in today's lesson here. All right, so again, you guys want to follow along with the presentation, you know where to find it in modules. It's at the top of the module. You just hit the chapter 4, click on it, you can find the textbook chapter and the presentations at the bottom. All right, so like I mentioned, with other factors of the revolution, yeah, those 2 wars, like the French and Indian War, the American Revolution, okay, that is causing an influence for the people of France to fight up against this old system. Why? Well, Enlightenment views. People want to have a government that represents their values. And at the same time, right, there's a lot of cost to these wars. Okay, so in order to try to pay back these costs of the war, France had to raise their taxes. The first and second estate didn't have to pay them, but the third estate did. All right, so other financial issues, we just talked about that. Other factors that led to the revolution was that you have Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. Okay, they were really living this luxury lifestyle. They didn't really care too much about the people of the third estate. They just continued to live this life of luxury. And at the same time, Marie Antoinette was pretty young, right? She wasn't even really from France either, so not a lot of people had respect for her. Okay, they had called her Madame Deficit, Lady Deficit. And the reason for it is because she was eating a lot of the fanciest foods like cake, right? And she was wearing these finest dresses during these times where people were struggling. Yeah, before she got killed, there was a quote, which many people say it's a myth or it didn't happen. What did they say? What did she say? Yeah, let them eat cake. Yeah, so as they were putting her head in the guillotine, she expressed to the public, the people, hey, let them eat cake, meaning, you starved for so long. Yeah, bread prices were out of this world while I was eating cake. How about you guys? You want to eat cake? Yeah, done. All right. So that was like some of the famous last words that they believe were spoken. Some people say it wasn't, but in any case, I thought it was interesting. All right, social classes. Like I said, the first and second estate had special privileges. The third estate, they did not. They're the ones that are having to pay these taxes. As you can see with this political cartoon, much like the one I showed you yesterday, this third estate is being abused by the first and second estate. As you can see, the king, religious hierarchy, you have some government officials under the absolute monarchy. They are really abusing the third estate. Okay, these people really don't have the ability to put food on the table as prices are sky high. And with taxes, it's just compiling their standard of living. They can't afford even just to, let's say, even have a table, right? They might not even have a home. These people don't have clothing. There's many reports that these people don't even have shoes or an ability to try to keep themselves warm during the winter months. Okay, a lot of them were poverty stricken. A lot of it because these high taxes, high inflation. So this is going to cause for a change in the government. All right, so bourgeois, we just talked about that. That's like your middle class. So these are some of your business owners, right? These are the people that own these businesses that can afford some of these taxes. They have a higher standard of living than the lower class. But in any case, they are pretty much stricken to a lower class since they have to pay such high prices of goods and higher taxes. This is going to lead to a revolution. All right, so here's a figure I saw in the book, which I thought was something that you guys can relate to. You can check it out on your own. But as you can see with the population on the far left, I know it's a little blurry, but you guys can check it out in your book, like I said. Far left on the pie chart here, this is population. 90%, over 90% is the third estate. And then you can kind of see small slithers of the first and second estate. The land ownership, right? So this land ownership, as you can see, the third estate has a huge chunk, but you got to realize they're over 98% of the population. Okay, for the first and second estate, they have huge chunks of land just for a small percentage. So again, the first estate right around 1%, second estate right around 2%. And then as you can see with taxation on the far right, first and second estate aren't even on it, right? So 100% of taxation for the third estate. So that's a better way of just understanding some of the issues, some of the problems that the third estate faced, just by a figure. So if you want to, you can check it out in your books, but I wanted to make sure I put it in there. I know it's a little blurry, but if you guys check out in the textbook, it has a little bit better representation. All right, so the meeting of the three estates, I just talked about this with the vocab terms. All right, so this is the first time the estates came together for close to almost 200 years, right around 175 years. The three estates never met, right? So it just showed really the power of the absolute monarchy during these times under Louis XIV, right? Continue all the way up to Louis XVI, right? This is something that just shows the power of the monarch. All right, so Louis XVI thought, well, we need to try to make sure we can keep the third estate somewhat happy, right? They were thinking that, you know what, maybe we can just try to, in a way, he was trying to pull a fast one on the third estate. He said that, oh, well, we actually have to have some people pay their fair share. We actually have to have some people in the second estate to pay up to some taxes. Do you think the second estate's going to go along with that? No, right? The third estate was like, yeah, this is great, right? This is going to prevent us from maybe launching a revolution. So for Louis XVI, he thought, well, this is the best way to try to keep everybody at ease. We're going to say that we're going to have the second estate pay taxes, but we're going to trick them real quick. Okay, we're going to go back to the system where each estate has one vote, right? So as the first, second, and third estate come together, which we have a lot more representatives for the third estate, okay, they were trying to fight for a constitutional monarchy. Louis XVI said, well, we'll just go back to the estate voting line. The first estate gets one vote, the second estate gets one vote, and the third estate gets one vote. So even though Louis XVI thought that he was going to try to keep and appease the third estate, make them happy by bringing into this National Assembly to vote on what type of what taxes the second estate will pay, he said, well, we're just going to go along these voting lines. So we all know the first and second estate, they're going to vote together. So, well, they beat them out 2-3, right? So with them coming together to vote that the taxes are not going to be paid for the second estate, it just goes to show where this power was held. So the first and second estate, even though their population was very, very low compared to the third estate, okay, their representation was a lot higher, a lot stronger. And they're just trying to keep things as the status quo. So the first and second estate, they band together to really outvote the third estate, even though it makes no sense when you look at population, when you look at representation based off of it. So anyway, the third estate decided we're going to leave this assembly. This is ridiculous. Our voice is not heard whatsoever. Okay, how can a few members of the first and second estate just really outvote us? Okay, the population isn't even close, right? For representation, it's not even close. So the third estate leaves. All right, so citizens action. This is the 3 terms I had you write down yesterday. It's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, social protest, citizens demonstrate against a government action or policy they want to change, right? So they form organizations, they form groups, they try to dispute about what changes they can make, right? Political actions. So citizens write or change a law to change a government policy or action. So they form organizations to make, let's say, a constitution. Okay, they want to try to create something that is representative of their people. They try to change or alter a policy that was established for so long. So with the absolute monarch, right, he wants to try to follow this estate voting line. Obviously, the first and second estate, they're going to vote together to trump or have a majority over the third estate every single time. So something needed to change. And this is what the third estate wants to bring. They want to try to have more representation. And then finally, if these actions aren't met, if these policies don't alter or change, well, you have a revolution, right? So you can see where this is going, right? You can see how this is going to really form. The third estate now just broke away from the National Assembly. They're going to form their own idea of government. At the same time, you got to realize that the absolute monarch is going to try to keep the third estate in line. How? He's going to launch the military on these people. But again, we talked about the military is made up of who? What? The third estate, right? So they're not going to follow along with this, right? They're not going to follow along with this. All right, so the tennis court oath. So as the third estate was coming together to form a constitution, well, they decided that they needed to come and meet within a representative body within a building, but the doors were locked, right? The doors were locked, and you can kind of figure who did that. So rather than meeting in, let's say, a government building, they decided to just go to one of these inside tennis courts, which I thought was interesting. Okay, so they come together, they form this tennis court oath that they'll create a constitution that is representative of the people. Their goal is to try to create something that is representative of the third estate. Okay, so for the third estate, they made an oath in this tennis court, right, literally, to create a constitution that is representative of the people, something that will challenge the authority of the absolute monarch. And with that, the king tried to gather the troops to protect themselves and break up this National Assembly, but it didn't work out. Like I mentioned, the third estate really makes up the military. Okay, these troops that even are, let's say, going along with the king, they're realizing that, you know what, this doesn't make any sense. Okay, so with the king's power, it's kind of faltering at this time. A lot of people realize that they don't have the ability the king doesn't have the ability to disband the third estate and creating this constitution. So the tennis court oath, it just means that they're coming together to form a constitution. They're not going to leave this meeting until they have something, a piece of paper, a written document that challenges the authority of the king. All right, I'll leave it at that since we only have a minute left. I didn't get through everything I wanted, but tomorrow we'll try to finish this. Okay. Like I said, my goal is to try to get this done before Christmas break, so then you guys can relax over break. That's the idea. So then you don't have any homework. You can just enjoy Christmas break.